Alright guys, we're here today with the Baker double notcher. We're just going to go over a few things with you and try to help you these guys out in the field. First off, we're going to start with the Unscrambler on things to do to it versus keeping up on maintenance wise, and show you how to kind of set things up. So for starters, you have your drag back. So that way it only allows one board to follow up at a time instead of two stacked on top of each other. So a really easy adjustment here. You just, whatever size material you're running, you just bust this nut loose, run this bolt in or bring it up, or you can let it down depending on what size. Most of the time we set them for 1 1/8" boards because that's what we always test run with. Your wings here on both sides, got a 1/2 inch bolt. You do have extra holes in this for if you need to take it in farther or take it out. We always set them up for 48-inch material, which will be in the 3rd hole. And then if you need to go wider, out to your 72 or whatever, you'll bust these bolts on out farther. Another thing is that your chains, you want to be able to, the best way to do them is just to kind of pull on them, give them a tug. If they lift up about 1 inch or so off the track that it rides on, that's pretty tight. That's kind of where our tightening point is. You don't want them super tight because then it's just going to cause you problems. You have an adjuster point here and one on each end with 4 bolts here. You'll bust these loose, you can tighten that chain up. If your chain gets too loose, and if you come over here, if your chain gets too loose, this is really tight in here. So if you allow your chains to get too loose, then they start hitting on the plate, the main plate and everything on the double notcher, which cause you problems, which cause you to rip your dogs off and everything else. So it's really good to make sure you keep those chains good and tight. Also, another thing is that there is a clutch pack that drives this. A lot of people want to take that clutch pack off and put a sprocket on it. That's not the right thing to do, because if you get too full back here, or you do have a jam up with the board that gets crossed or anything, that's going to slip and allow you not to bust your gearbox. So if you notice that it's slipping, it's not pulling or whatever, always look for a jam up somewhere, whether it be down below, in here, or anything, because that's what that clutch is designed to do, is to slip if it gets underneath any pressure. That way you don't bust your gearbox. It's always good just to, you know, check everything, grease everything. You also have your plate up top for adjustment to how your boards fall up into the back. You always want to make sure that it stays over the top yellow piece. If you move it in farther because you're running thinner material, well, you're going to adjust that bracket down farther. If you're going to pull it out, you can bring that bracket up. That way it's not hitting. And that just allows it to help funnel it into the back of the double notcher. So that's basically everything on the Unscrambler, versus trying to keep up with the maintenance and tighten everything and keep everything greased, keep your bearings greased and all that good stuff. Alright guys, I have moved the Unscrambler out of the way to kind of show you all this. I know when it's in your facility and you're running, like, man, that's super tight to get to, but I just want to be able to physically show you guys what I'm talking about here, and it's hard to get in there with the camera. So your pusher here, a lot of times people will call in and say that my pusher's not working right. It'll push and it's not coming back, it'll push and not come back. Sometimes when you're running, a piece will break off or whatever and get into one of those boxes, which won't allow it to push. If this pusher here does not break contact with this limit switch, it will never tell it to come back. So if you ever think you got a jam up and you think it's wiring or anything, make sure that pusher's pushing all the way and tripping this switch to tell it to come back. Because a lot of times it's not. It won't. If it doesn't hit this switch, it's not coming back. You can hit the jog button however many times you want or whatever, it's never going to come back until this switch is made. So always keep an eye on that. And always make sure your limit switches is touching this piece of key stock here. If it's bent up for whatever reason, if it gets bent up like that or whatever, and that clears, it's not going to work right. Same thing with the back. So always make sure they're down and they're able to catch this piece of key stock here. Also, your heads have to be on before the feed will ever even work. So always make sure you got your cutter heads on before you ever even try the feed. This proc switch here starts and stops your unscrambler. So whenever this gets filled up to here, the unscrambler automatically stops. As soon as the board drops down past the eye, it automatically comes back on. It's the same concept at the bottom with the pusher, except for it has to have 3 eyes to make it work. So there's 2 eyes on the bottom and 1 eye right here. So as soon as it clears this eye, it's going to stop pushing until it fills up with more boards. If you ever have to replace one or whatever, if one goes bad or what have you, the best way to set these eyes is 1, 2, and 3, okay? So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna do eye number 1 first, eye number 2 second, and eye number 3 last. So what you'll do is you'll see it light up. When you put your hand in front of it, always make sure your feet is off while doing this. Let me get that in there. Because if you stick your hand in here and your feet is on, as a matter of fact, you can unhook your air too, so that way this pusher will not push. But the easiest way to set it is to get it to light up with your hand, okay? You have to have all 3 covered to make sure that they're all lit up. You gotta make sure they're all 3 lit up. If one's not lighting up, it's not gonna function right. So how we set them is you just stick your hand in there, and in that bottom one, catch that bottom one, reach over here, and you can look through, and right here on these eyes, they got a spot where they light up. You can see them light up, okay? So that's if you ever gotta replace one. You just want to make sure that they're all lit up together. Don't just grab one, put it in there, and say, okay, it's good to go. You want to always check them, because if it doesn't light up when it's supposed to, it's not going to be right. And you have your little deers here to turn it up to where it lights up. But when you take your hand away from it, you want it to go out, okay? So that's just kind of how you adjust those to make sure that they're working properly. Now then, we can move on to, well, this plate I was talking about earlier for the yellow plate on top of the Unscrambler. These are your adjuster points right here for your thicker and thinner material. Like I said, we always preset everything for 1 1/8" boards, because that's what we're mainly test running with. Now that we can move on to over here. This handle controls how wide your fences are, or your guides, however you want to call it, in here. So you crank this handle, takes them out, takes them in, just kind of adjust your in and out. This here is for your heads to set the width on what you want your notches to be. Just crank it in, crank it out. And then this handle here is to adjust the height of however thick you're going to be notching. And whenever you do that, you raise this table up, always make sure that you reset all 4 corners on your all thread, because you want that table set down nice and level, okay? So if you need to go from 1 1/2" notch to 1 1/8" notch, we'll crank that table up and then adjust these up and then let the pressure back off that gearbox, so that way everything's sitting good, okay? Don't ever just run it with it just hanging up around the air. All right, so you're here at your control station, and like I was explaining earlier, whenever you pull everything, always make sure you start your left and right cutter, okay? You got to make sure they're all the way up before you ever even turn your feed on, okay? Your feed won't start until both cutter heads are on. I want to talk a little bit about the jog button. That's back to making sure that you don't have no jam ups. And the jam up that I'm talking about that happens is when you come over here to these boxes. Sometimes if you have a knot or anything like that, or board's busted or whatever, sometimes they'll break off and they'll fall into that box, which will create a stop for your stringer to go on through. So a lot of people think because this pusher pushed so far, but it ain't functioning back and forth, is because that piece has got it stuck. And it's not tripping the front limit switch to tell it when to come back. So a lot of people think that jog should just work. It's never gonna work unless this switch is made. So always make sure that it's catching all the switches and doing all that. The jog button is also mainly for cleaning it out. So if you're switching over to different thickness of board or different length or whatever, the jog button is mainly just to help clean it out, clean those last boards out, because like I said, once you clear this eye, the pusher stops until you fill it up more. So if you're wanting to clean it out to move on to a different size material, that's what the jog button is mainly used for, is so that way you can cycle those last few boards out and get them on through. The same thing with the Unscrambler too as well. It's got the switch up here that stops it when it gets full. You can also advance it, jog it a little bit. For that, if you got a few more left in there, just a couple left that you want to run on through. So that's basically what your jog points are. But always make sure you got your cutter heads on, turn your feet on, and then you're good to go. But always pay attention to jam ups, or something gets here, a bunch of buildup gets in here, and stuff like that. So that's basically it.